two elements of the professional development director role, and that's professional registration, which is EngTech, iEng, and CEng, and certification, which is ACEP, CCEP, and ECEP. I guess roughly my split of time is probably been around about 75% towards professional registration and about 25% towards certification. And I'll explain why that's the case. So let's deal with professional registration first, because I think that's probably the bigger bit, and then we'll cover certification. So just before I joined the council in 2020, Incosi UK became licensed by the Engineering Council to be able to offer professional registration. But the arrangement that we have is a little bit special in that Incosi UK and another engineering institute called the Institute of Explosive Engineers actually have a bit of a partnership thing going. So we have what's called a joint review board, a JRB. And because we're both quite small institutes, we use this JRB function as a mechanism to establish common process, pull together some resource in terms of assessors and things, and generally to sort of support each other. So the JRB exists as a construct or as a function in order to get those things done. But the license we have between us and the Engineering Council is to the specific institute. So we have our own license, and the explosive engineers have their own license as well. So the JRB sits every 3 months, and its purpose is to ratify decisions. So once a applicant for whatever title of professional registration, let's say chartership, once an applicant has gone through the process and the outcome of that application has been recommended by the assessors. So if they say, yes, this is a good CEng application, the JRB's function, one of the JRB's function is to ratify that decision. And the other thing the JRB is there to do is to provide overall governance and steering of the professional registration services. So to make sure that the processes are in order, to keep an eye on number of assessors and make sure we have a big enough pool of assessors, and to manage any risks, those sort of things. And both Incosi UK and the Institute of Explosive Engineers put in 3 individuals into the JRB, and so those 6 individuals together make up the board. The 3 individuals that we put in from Incosi's side currently are the president, the past president, and myself as professional development director. It's a slightly different arrangement on the explosive side, but they put in three individuals from their side too. So one of my main roles is to sit on the JRB and to ratify decisions and to provide that governance. So there's a big part of the role is to do with that. Obviously, actions can be taken out of that JRB, and sometimes they're assigned to my role too. Sometimes they're assigned to the explosives engineers as well. And obviously, between the JRBs, we need to close out those actions and keep making progress. The other parts of professional registration that I get involved in, we have to do an annual audit. So the Engineering Council require us to do an audit every year to make sure that we're following the processes that we've set out ourselves. So that's an internal audit. So there's some organization of the audit, and then obviously some actions and findings that come out of that audit process. We also have to do a CPD sample of our registrants. So every year we ask, it's around about 10% of our registered members to submit their CPD. We have to do a check on that to make sure that they are keeping adequate CPD records and that their CPD is appropriate for the title that they hold. And so there's a little bit of administration and organization of those CPD sample reviews. We do an annual license review report every year. So again, the Engineering Council wants to know annually what our risks are, so that they can understand the, I guess, the bigger picture of risks to the engineering institutes. So every year we have to submit a report on that, and they quite often come back on what we submit and ask further clarifications and things. I mean, I myself am also an assessor, so I actually get involved in the assessment process as well. So in terms of C engines and I engines and things like that, I'm involved in the assessment process. And for the last 2 years, every year, the arrangement we have with the Engineering Council was that when we first got our license, it was for a 1-year trial. Well, not trial, but I mean, they gave us for a year period. Ordinarily, most of the big institutes, they're on a 5-year cycle. So every 5 years, the Engineering Council comes along and does a bit of an assessment. And if they're satisfied, they'll award a license for another 5 years. We haven't been on that 5-year cycle yet. The first 2 years of my tenure, we've been only getting a 1-year extension. So the reasons for that are quite many, but basically it's just building confidence with the Engineering Council, making sure our processes are adequate. They've wanted to see certain things being implemented, and then they wanted to check them after about a year. So that's been going on every year for the last 2 years. This year, in January, we were awarded a 2-year extension to our license. And the reason it was 2 years and not 5 years is because 2 years gets us onto the 5-year cycle with all the other engineering institutes. So in 2 years' time, we will have to go through this license review process again. But after that, and as long as we're successful, we should have a 5-year cycle, and we'll be into the normal cycle with all the other engineering institutes. And that will be a massive win for us. That would be really significant, because it gives us a stable 5-year period that we can kind of begin to build other things that I think the council would like to do off of. So I guess that's a quick rundown of the main points on professional registration. My involvement with certification is a little less than professional registration. The process is more established. It's been running for quite a number of years. And the arrangement is a little bit different. So the certification process and standard and criteria are all set by Incosi Central, not by Incosi UK. We have an agreement with Incosi Central that we administer the process in the UK, which means that in effect, if you apply to be a CSEP, you get evaluated and processed in the UK rather than your application going off effectively back to the United States for assessment. So that agreement is in place, but it has been for a number of years, and the process is largely pretty effective. So it mostly runs itself. We have a secretariat team, and they handle all the applications. They do for professional registration as well, but for certification, they've been handling the applications for quite some time. We have a pool of assessors, and the process largely runs itself. So I only sort of intervene on a few occasions where there needs to be some kind of action or some steer to the secretariat, but it largely runs itself. The other aspects of the role include we have recently been accepted by what's called IFATE, which is the Institute for Apprentices and Technicians. I can't remember what it all stands for, but basically it's a sort of an offset of Ofqual, and their role is to act as what's known as quality assessors for the apprenticeships that the government offer. So I don't know if you're familiar with the system engineering degree apprenticeship. It's a level 7 master's apprenticeship. And we were asked whether we could support iFate by being included on what they call their industry body register. So they want to create a register of industry bodies that can either do the quality assurance, so support them in doing the quality assurance of the apprenticeships, or to provide, I guess, industry feedback or industry steering in terms of the technical content and the standards that govern the apprenticeships. So we applied for that and we were successful, which means we're part of that register now. And we can be invited to participate in, quality assessments, audits, and things like that. But also we could be involved in various studies as to what, I guess, sort of system engineering best practice is and how it should be applied in the apprenticeship. At the moment, we're only on the register for the system engineering degree apprenticeship, specifically that one. But I guess maybe in time we might consider being assigned other relevant apprentices. I mean, there's more than just the system engineering degree apprenticeship. There is a system engineering type degree, and so I guess we could over time look at becoming assigned to more than one. But at the moment, we are just assigned to that one degree. So that was a recent initiative to become part of that register. I sit on the council. We have 4 council meetings a year. So the professional development director role is a council role, which means I have a responsibility to provide a report into council every quarter as to how we're doing for professional development. But also I sit on the council, so I have a voting role on the council. If you're on the council, you're entitled to attend ASEC. So I also run normally a professional development session at ASEC. I also run a monthly webinar on professional development generally as part of sort of promoting the scheme and trying to draw more people in. UCAB, I don't have a particular role on UCAB, but a lot of the UCAB organizations obviously have an interest in professional development, professional registration, and it's not uncommon for them to reach out and ask for engagement of some sort. One area that we are exploring with UCAB, particularly the academic organizations of UCAB, so the universities, is about either academic equivalency of the knowledge exam, the certification knowledge exam, or looking at possibly accreditation of their courses through the Engineering Council. So we're just kind of in an exploring kind of space at the moment, looking at the options and what's feasible. What I would say in that space is with academic equivalency, in Cozy Central have got a process for that, and it's pretty well established. We haven't had a UK university go through the process yet, but we do understand the process pretty well. With accreditation of higher education programs, it is an option, and we have begun conversations with the Engineering Council, but it would require us to have an extension on our license. So we would need to go through and demonstrate to the Engineering Council that we have, again, certain processes in place, that we have a skilled set of assessors that could do the work, that they're suitably trained, that we govern the process properly and all that sort of stuff. So there'd be a bit of work to be done to get licensed in order to do accreditation of higher education programs. but it is definitely something I think we would like to explore over time. And I guess the obvious starting place would be those system engineering degree apprenticeships that are offered by a variety of universities, UCL, Cranfield, Loughborough, and others. So I think those are probably the main activities for the role. Yeah. Is there any questions? Anything you wanted to ask, Tim?
Nothing that springs to mind. So I'm aware of the degree apprenticeship. So my second degree was actually funded in a very similar way through Warwick Management or Warwick Manufacturing Group at Warwick Uni. It was paid for by Aerospace Growth Partnership, I think, the development of that course, and follow-on cohorts went through the degree apprenticeship to do that. So quite familiar with that process and going through that. So familiar with that. I say I'm a professional registration advisor, so quite familiar with those processes and go through the only bit I've got a bit of a blank on is the INCOSI certification, which sounds like it's a well understood and trodden path. So
it is largely, yeah. I mean, as I said, the split for me is probably around about 75-25%. Most of my time and effort is on professional registration. I guess on certification, the big change this year will be the new edition of the handbook, and obviously that changes the knowledge exam. My understanding at the moment is that there's been some individuals who have volunteered to go through a testing process, testing the test, I guess. Really, there's a new set of questions, obviously, on the new handbook, and these individuals have volunteered to be kind of guinea pigs through that process a little bit. The new handbook, I believe, is due to be published in August, and the test will effectively switch over at that point, and all testing will be done against the new 5th edition of the handbook. So there'll be some teething trouble with that, I suspect, but it doesn't change the process. It's just the questions and the source materials changed a bit.
Yeah, so it shouldn't. It won't step too far out of line of the ISO update either, I guess.
No, so, I believe not.
Yeah, it'd be concerning if it did, but yeah. No, so no further questions.